Are you scared of the coronavirus? Well, I'm not going to talk about the virus. I do know the best way to cure it. Publicly funded research. Of all the places to spend tax money, research is almost never mentioned. Politicians come and go, advocating more money for healthcare, more money for infrastructure, more money for the border, but almost never research. We should increase the amount of publicly funded research in the U.S. to provide advancements in medical treatments, new technologies, and a stronger economy. Arguably the best place to put federal research money, federal grants for medical research save countless lives and huge sums of money. In the past 100 years, life expectancy in the U.S. has risen from 50 to almost 80 years of age, and the quality of healthcare with it. When my grandpa was a kid, he got polio and was put in an iron lung. This treatment cost huge sums of money and left him with a limp for the rest of his life. Unfortunately, this is a common occurrence in the U.S. until the government funded a program to create a vaccine for polio. As said in the Impact of Federally Funded Biomedical and Health Research by Bhavin and Simpat, technologies that make preventions or cures on diseases save countless lives and are cost reducing, especially the polio vaccine, which is much cheaper than the iron lung. The government spent around $1 billion to develop this vaccine, which today it gives to almost every kid in the U.S. for only around 10 cents a dose. According to the CDC, this has saved over $200 billion since its creation in healthcare costs in the U.S. In the article, Putting a Value on Medical Research by Colin Blinkmore, a recent study has showed a 6-fold return of investment on respiratory disease research, a 5-fold on digestive system research, and a 3-fold on respiratory disease research. This means that for every dollar we spend researching diseases, we can expect to see a return of $3 to $6 in savings later. It is much cheaper to prevent or research a cure for a disease than it is to treat one. In doing so, we're all getting much safer. Beyond research into medicine, scientific research on basic sciences like physics and chemistry has countless benefits. It may not seem like research on the basic or complex sciences can do much for the average person, but most of the advanced technologies we've gotten in the last 100 years were a result of these discoveries. Today, research agencies pour huge amounts of money into projects like the Large Hadron Collider. This serves many purposes, but one of the things it has done recently is prove the existence of a particle called the Higgs boson. You may be thinking, why are we putting so much money researching things we can't even see, instead of more tangible things? Well, 100 years ago, I can promise you people said the same thing about subatomic particles like the electron. Today, we use electrons to power everything around us. And the electricity we get from them is how we get the electricity. When electricity was first discovered, no one could ever guess how much we would eventually use it. And the same might be said in 100 years about discoveries made today. There's a huge amount of physics that we don't know about, and solving these mysteries could lead to some incredible discoveries. One thing that scientists are currently working on is to see how antimatter behaves with gravity. While we know it exists, it's almost impossible to see how it reacts with other matter. According to the article, Detecting Antimatter Gravity with Ammonium by Daniel Kaplan, the gravitational acceleration of antimatter has never been directly observed, and theoretically could go in the opposite direction of normal matter. Take all this with a grain of salt, because it's not proven, but if true, could lead to some incredible discoveries. This is a picture I drew of one possible crazy invention if this thing were true. You see the ground at the bottom, sun in the sky, and a car floating over the ground. If antimatter could theoretically be pushed opposite direction of normal matter with gravity, we could use it to create floating or flying cars or other inventions. Just like how physics has enabled us to manipulate electrons to power everything around us, in 100 years, we may be able to do the same with gravity and much more. By putting federal funds into research, we aren't just giving it away in exchange for new technologies, but creating an investment in the future. Stated in Science Business, returns from public investment in research are around 20% a year, a value 3 times higher than the stock market. This makes public research money one of the most important places for federal funds. Historically, this has kept the U.S. at the top of the world's innovation and made our companies as some of the most powerful. From research into nuclear energy to advancements in battery technologies, the U.S. currently spends more than any other country on research and development. This has proven to be immensely valuable. Many of the most influential technologies of the 20th century were created from government investment. The internet was originally made by the military as a means of secure communication. After giving it to the public, it is now a major part of every sector of the U.S. economy. Think of a large tech company. Odds are it's one from the U.S. It's no coincidence that U.S. companies are so dominant on the world stage. They're backed up by billions of dollars in tax incentives and directly funded research by the U.S. government. They also have a wide array of available technologies to use. Today, though, this lead is starting to dwindle as countries like China and the combined might of the European Union both see the incredible value of research and development. Both these countries will be spending over $300 billion on research this coming year, coming close to the U.S.'s total of $500 billion. In order to stay ahead of these countries, we need to continue to invest this money into public research. With so many lives, technologies, and such a large part of our economy at stake, it's important we continue to support publicly funded research. The best ways to do this is to contact our politician like this, like our local San Luis Obispo House of Rep, and continue to support politicians that are both knowledgeable and care about science. Thank you very much.
Okay, current teammates, please.
I thought your introduction was very clear, and it was like you clearly set out the central idea and what you were arguing.
I think you made it. I think you made a good counterpoint to the fact that like in 100 years we'll appreciate the technology more, as like the fact that like the lights are everywhere. He kind of looked at them too to kind of bolster their significance, I guess.
I used a lot of data, and I think it helped a lot. Like, figures of like money and how much it saves.
Okay. Current compelling argument, right? Research monies to increase to address societal ills, if you will. I would. One thing that got me, I got a little confused with is you noted in your introduction that we should increase money into medical research. I might have maybe just made it a global research piece, one for medical and then one for science. Because when you started getting into the science of the neutrons and the electrons and the antimatter matter, it kind of bled into something that didn't pertain to medical. So I got a little confused.
Oh.
Does that make sense?
It wasn't meant to be it was just publicly funded research.
Okay. Then
Okay. Sorry,
okay. Maybe make that a little more clear. Maybe what I would say is then identify the arguments that you're going to be making. It's going to be in medical. It's going to be in. I don't know if I heard that earlier.
I mentioned it.
Okay. Yeah, maybe make that just stand out a little bit more so we hear what to listen for. Okay, then that makes more sense. I would say just make those little pieces pop just a little bit. Yeah. What I appreciated was that your information with regards to like the cost of polio and how much is how much money is saved by having a vaccine versus having the iron lung. That has a really compelling argument to make, right? Same thing for other diseases that you could potentially illustrate. What's the cost of a life versus being able to find a vaccination? Things like, the HIV/AIDS virus and things like flu and those sorts of things. I mean, close to 70,000 people a year die from flu. So, flu vaccines have a beneficial effect on